written music, he's performed music, and after he and I moved to San Francisco 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, he got the idea of forming a record label to share the music that he loved so much with other people. And this is something that has been a work of love for him for over 30 years. And I think the results speak for themselves. He has done a tremendous amount to bring joy and enjoyment, but wonderful music to all of our lives, and I think we are all much richer for it. Before we hear from Doug, though, I would like to introduce another great friend and colleague of the Entrada family, an excellent musician and an extremely gracious gentleman. I would like to introduce Mr. Bruce Broughton.
Really easy. I was talking to him earlier and I was reminded that a few years ago, because I'm on the ASCAP board, there was a group of us who had a lunch with a Republican congressman. We were there on behalf of ASCAP and composers and writers and all this. And the people who were with me were Marilyn Bergman, the well-known songwriter, who was the president at that time of ASCAP, Paul Williams, who presently the president of ASCAP, terrific songwriter, and Hal David, who of course is a very famous songwriter. And there was a composer. And as we were talking to the congressman said afterwards, he said, okay, now this is what I want from you. I want each of you to send me 2 or 3 CDs of your work. And Marilyn looked at me and she kind of laughed and said, you have CDs, Bruce? Well, Doug let me know that I have 50 CDs. And I said to Marilyn, yes, no, I have CDs. The first time I met Doug was about 30 years ago, shortly after he started with the company. He gave me a call. I think it was because I'd done a TV movie called Old Man and the Sea, which was the first thing we did together. I went up to San Francisco to see him. He picked me up in his Ford Mustang. His former, I think his output at that time were a couple of Jerry Wilson stores and a couple of Basil Oliver stores. Okay, I like Jerry. And I like Basil, and I was very, very, very flattered to think that anybody would consider putting one of my pieces onto a CD. Since that time, I've seen Doug move offices. I've seen his the number of composers who he has worked with grow enormously. My respect for Doug is extraordinary. I've seen him get, this is an impolite word, and a lot of other people wouldn't be flattered, but in his case it's flattered. I've seen him get really geeky about the production of our stuff. I've had to fight with him over what I didn't want to have in there and what he wanted to have in there. I've seen the care that he's taken. I've spent hours and hours and hours of production with Doug. I've heard him talk about other composers. I've heard him talk about other scores. I've seen what he has. I know that this is a guy who really, 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 really loves not only what he does, but what you do. He loves what I do. I could go through here person by person and say he loves what you do. He knows all your music. He wants more of it. He has lots of plans for it all. This is a great celebration. This is 30 years of somebody who has had an enormous passion and has done something really wonderful with it. So that's my introduction to Doug. I think Doug is a fabulous guy. I think that his company is a fabulous company. I, of course, am a little biased in it because I've done very well for him. But I'm really happy to be here and help celebrate Doug. There you go.
Everybody for coming tonight and helping us celebrate this 30th anniversary. Thank you, Marianne. And thank you, Bruce. I really don't know what to say after that. I really don't. I have an anecdote. That's about all I really can come up with. And it's the truth about how we started Entrada, because it's the the question I always get asked: how do you get into soundtracks? You know, it's a pretty small, you know, area for somebody. When I got started, and I always tell people I was a little kid who started collecting soundtracks. That's what Mary Ann pointed out. But that isn't really the truth. I mean, that's where the movie music interest came. But the truth is actually, and this is without embellishment, at University of Colorado, where I was studying music education, starting a new course, and it was 20th century music. The professor of that course, who will remain nameless for this group, but gave his introductory speech. It was a lecture, it was a large class, and he explained the curriculum he was going to go through for that semester. So of course he named composers that we're going to cover, and you know, the obvious ones for the beginning of the 20th century. He even got detailed enough to say, we're going to talk about Stephen Foster's influence on the turn of the century music, and George Gershwin's two lives, you know, jazz and the concert hall, and all of this. And then all of a sudden he said something, and that was where it started. He literally said, one thing we're not going to cover is all that John Wayne bouncing on his horse crap that comes out of the cinema. And I'm not making this up. This is the truth. And it's a large class. Everybody's just listening. It's the beginning class. I couldn't leave it alone. So, but I was polite. I said, excuse me, I'm just curious, what do you mean by John Wayne bouncing on his horse crap that comes out of the cinema? And he wasn't even looking at me, he answered. He just said, there's no music that comes out of the film industry that's worth discussing. This, of course, the mid-70s when I was studying, so we didn't have Back to the Future live concert type of things. And so I challenged that, and I said, of course, like I say, it's 75. My point of reference was Ben-Hur, Elsa, Spartacus, and things like that. So I said, you're saying that these are absolutely worthless? And he said, name one piece of music that any composer has turned into something substantial. And I didn't know if he was meaning like a concert work or what. So I just said, threw it out, Sinfonia Antarctica, because it's a 20th century composer, of course, Ralph Vaughan Williams. And now he looked at it. Now we had a dialogue, and the whole class was silent. It was like, first wow, confrontation. There was some tension. And he said, how do you tie Sinfonia Antarctica into the cinema? And I took that at first like, is this a real challenge? Because he's a professor of 20th century music. But he did say it. So I said, well, it's based on a film score. He said, what's your name? My name. He said, sorry, Mr. Fick, you're incorrect. And he says, I know the score you're talking about. It came several years after the symphony. So I said, I'm sorry, but Sinfonia, it's based on a film score. That's what it is. And that, you know, pre-internet, cell phones, you can't go on IMDb or something. But we did fortunately have one thing going for us. There's a large, behind the lectern, he had a whole large row of albums. There's a lot of classical albums. He was going to talk about the composer. So he went, pulled out the Vaughan Williams, first symphony. And I mean, I believe it was Sir Adrian Bould's recording on Angel. Pulls this out, and he's reading the program notes to correct me. And he's reading them out loud. And all of a sudden he's talking about, he's reading this I think it was 43 or something, film score to Scott of the Antarctic, British film, and it's talking about Vaughan Williams, adapted all this music. And then he stopped in front of his class and he just said, get out. You're out of the course. And I'm not making it up. That's the truth. He said, talk to your advisor, take another course. You'll get the credits on another course. And I walked out saying, someday I'm going to prove that music that comes from the cinema is substantial music. And it deserves to be taken out of the background and put into the foreground. And that's what we do. So, So, without further ado, I guess is what you people say. You're the reason we're here. We did put together, Jeff and I. Jeff, of course, Jeff is our store manager, so he has a video and he's very good. Some of you guys, when you get your orders, it's because of him. So, with his help, I put together a short clip. Well, sort of short. It's just short clips of what Marianne was talking about, why I got interested in filming it. So it's just it's a little montage. The one thing is it's aimed very much towards the ones I kind of grew up with. So most of it is, it's not movies from the last couple of years. In other words, it's really things that kind of got me inspired. It's really great stuff. So hopefully it'll be entertaining. It's just short clips, but it's supposed to be sort of you grab from the film, the scene where the composer is really doing the talking. So, there's still going to be sound effects or dialogue or whatever, but it's just a little moment where it looks like without that music, there's no way the scene would work. And that music could be improved. It's the best that anybody could probably do. So, I believe we have some